Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned to talk about ebooks, because this is kind of a sequel to a video that I did the other day. The other day, I did a video about the physical books that I love, which was kind of a response reaction type of thing to a video that Gareth did over at Book Songs and Other Magic. Because Gareth, over at Book Songs and Other Magic, doesn't particularly care for ebooks. He likes physical books. And he made a really great video where he talks about that. So I thought, there are physical books that I have a great affection for too. Like a lot of them. And so I made like a 40-minute video about some of the physical books that I love. But it made me think about ebooks. Because I watched another video recently that was done by CriminOlly. And in the video, Ollie mentions the book Headful of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay, which is a book I like an awful lot. It's one of my favorite horror novels, actually. And it made me think, I'm like, where did I put that book? And then I realized I don't own a physical copy of Headful of Ghosts. I never have. I've read it twice, so you'd think I would know. But there was a moment where I was wondering, where did I put that book? But I had read it on my e-reader. Not this one, because this one's fairly new, but I read it on an e-reader. This is a Kindle. I read it on a Kindle. Twice, actually. But I don't own it physically, and I've read a few of Tremblay's books, but I don't own any of them in physical form. I only have them, and I've only read them as ebooks. And there are a lot of authors and a lot of books like that I've only read as ebooks. And I remember those books very fondly, many of them. And it made me think about ebooks and physical books, the differences between them, and the affection that most of us as readers have for physical books and the physical book experience. I won't, in this video, go into the pros and cons of each, because I think that's ground that's been well covered by myself and a billion other people. But I do think it's an interesting thing that as readers that we are, faced with today. Which for, years and years and years, if you wanted to read a book, you read a physical book. And all of the things that are associated with reading, like going to the bookstores, going to the libraries, browsing books, and bringing home an armful of books maybe, and finding places for books on your shelves, and all of that sort of thing. All of those things just naturally came along if you were a reader. But in today's world, it doesn't have to be that way. In today's world, you can read every day for hours and never go to a bookstore and not have a single book in your house, not a single physical book, because of these e-readers, because of these. And it's an interesting phenomena, which, makes one think, or makes me think at least, about the differences between reading and physical books, because they're different things. Being a reader is not the same thing as just loving physical books. Because physical books, going to the bookstore, putting books on your shelves, all of that is just associated with reading. That's has nothing to do with the love of reading or being a reader, really. Those are just things that go along with it. which now you don't need unless, you know, you prefer to have those experiences. And it makes me wonder if it's possible to love ebooks the same way we would love a physical book. I think it's harder, right? Because this is a physical book, you know, and all the wonderful tactile sensations that exist with it. Where this is a cold hunk of plastic with an eerie glowing screen. And it appears particularly eerie, you know, when I try to film it. So could we ever love ebooks in the same way that we love physical books? I don't know. I think in the last video that I did, I talked mostly about, you know, what Gareth referred to as our relationship with books, how we would have a relationship with specific books, which by that I mean he has an affection for specific books that he has read or is reading or will be reading. He has an affection for these, Gareth does, and so do I. I develop an affection for the physical books that I read. But you can also, of course, develop an affection just for the story or the novel. With ebooks, you have what a book is boiled down to its purest form, which is just the words that you read, which has nothing to do with the way that you read it or listen to it if you're into audiobooks. That is what a book actually is. It's a collection of short stories, or it's an anthology, or it's a novel that you read. And how you read it, that's a whole other thing. And it made me think about that when I thought of A Headful of Ghosts and other books that I had only read on the Kindle. And I tried to remember, well, if I read a book and it's a physical book, I could pretty much always remember the book itself, the physical book itself that I read it on. But I've owned, you know, many Kindles over the years, many of them, many different ones. And so trying to remember, you know, well, what Kindle did I read that on? You know, what was the physical thing that I read that book on? For the life of me, I can't remember, you know, and it's that way for probably all of the ebooks that I've read. I can never remember and will never remember the exact device. It was a Kindle, but the exact Kindle device that I read it on. Was it an old Kindle keyboard? Was it the Oasis? Was it the Paperwhite? You know, I can't remember which device I read it on was, but I can remember the books very well, right? The books themselves I remember. And the experience of reading them I remember. And I guess that maybe is a good thing for an e-reader, in that the e-reader itself you pay no attention to really once you're reading. Which is a little different, I think, for physical books. For physical books, they're also individual. They all feel a little bit different. You know, the font is not what you make it. You know, in a Kindle, the font is always going to be whatever it is. You know, whatever you make it. And so it's going to be the same for whatever book you read. In physical books, they're all just, you know, a little bit different from each other. You know, different sizes, different shapes. I think it helps. It certainly helps you remember the physical object and thus have an affection for the object itself. In a way, I don't think you can ever experience that same thing with an e-reader. However, if the novel or the short story or the anthology that you read is really, really good, that is what you remember the most, I think. That is probably the most important thing, is the quality of the thing that you are reading. There's no right way to read, I think. You know, it's all individual taste. But I think that kind of explains why we have an affection for, as readers, for the things that are associated with reading. And certainly going to the bookstore can be fun, and going to the library can be fun, and discovering new things on the shelves and bringing them home and that sort of thing. Whereas as a reader nowadays, you need never do any of that. You don't have to go to a bookstore ever. You know, you don't have to go to the library. You don't have to. It's fun, but you don't have to. You don't need a single book in your house. You don't need a single physical book in your house, and you can read every day. You know, you could read as much as the most avid reader and not own a physical book, which is a weird thought for those who are my age and have just grown up with physical books. It's odd. It's odd to think about. And so I was thinking about it, and now I'm talking about it here to you. And it's very early, so my thoughts are not all, you know, they're not as well presented perhaps as usual. I should really sleep more than 4 hours. I should really start doing that. Anyway, I'll shut up now about ebooks. This is just a little, you know, afterward to that last video I did. I will catch you next time.